Welcome everybody, Joseph Robert, the Fantasy Football Counselor. In this video, I'm going to reveal to you who the #1 pick is for Fantasy Football 2020 and what makes a good Fantasy Football first overall pick. In this video, let's get to it. Welcome to the show, guys. I am super excited. In this episode, I'm revealing the first pick for Fantasy Football 2020. Who should you pick first overall? Now, I understand, guys, that the first overall pick does not make or break your season. Typically, a first pick can actually hurt you more than anything because what happens is the guy that finished on top last year is very unlikely to finish on top again the year after, okay? So you got to keep that in the back of your mind. But I want to reveal who I really like as the first overall pick for 2020 Fantasy Football and why I like that person. I'm going to get to that in this video. But it's very important that you know the factors that make up that first overall pick. What makes somebody worthy of a first overall pick? We got to go over that first. Before I get into that, make sure you guys click subscribe, leave a thumbs up, and your questions below. I get to as many questions as I can to help you for 2020 Fantasy Football and beyond. We go year round. Smash that thumbs up. It genuinely means a lot to me. And of course, guys, you can pre-order my 16-round draft solution where you get a bunch of optimal players in each round that are optimized to draft for 2020 Fantasy Football. That gets officially released at the end of April, but it is available for pre-order right now at the lowest possible price. There is a link below. But again, main thing right now is that you guys click subscribe, really appreciate it, and leave that thumbs up. All right, so what are the factors that make a first overall pick? Well, #1, it's got to be consistency. History tells us stories, okay? History reveals a lot. So you got to look at the player. Has he been consistent before? You got to look at a game-by-game basis. Is he having these sporadic games where he's putting up like 40 points one game and then 3 points the next game? I don't like that volatility. I like consistency. So when you are looking at that player that you want to pick, especially first overall, you want to invest that precious first overall draft pick on, you got to look at consistency, okay? How consistent are they? Another thing is talent. How talented are they? That's very important. Were they good out of college? How good did they do last year? How good is this player? How talented are they physically, mentally? Do they have off-field issues? You got to look at the whole situation. Are they posing on social media or are they grinding on social media? I look at everything, guys, when I'm determining who I draft. Never mind even first overall, but in general, okay? #3, what situation are they in? Okay, are they in a good situation to succeed? Do they have a good offensive line if they're running back? Do they have a good quarterback if they're a wide receiver? If they're a quarterback, do they have good wide receivers? Do they have good coaching? Is it an offensive-minded coach that's going to, run the ball a lot more and smash the ball down the throat? Like, you don't know. You got to look at the whole situation, right? When you're drafting, especially that first overall pick. So again, I'm going to reveal the first overall pick, but again, you got to understand that I have a very strict criteria in regards to selecting that first overall pick. Another thing is volume. If they're a running back, are they going to get attempts? If they're a wide receiver, are they going to get the targets? I also look at that. So again, it's a specific criteria. It's not like, hey, you know what, this guy finished on top last year. Let's make him, the #1 pick again this year. First of all, it's very rare that a person that finished last year finish on top again the year after. It's very rare. Prior to me coming into the industry about 4 years ago, nobody was teaching this stuff. Everybody was so caught in, and they're still caught in the prehistoric time. They're still there. The mainstream, the consumers, they're still there. They're literally playing it safe. They don't want to take risks and say, oh, well, that guy is okay. He had some upside at the end of the season, but I'm not sure if I'm going to make him top 3. And that's what I did with Derrick Henry last year because Derrick Henry, I had him actually in my top 5. Derrick Henry was a guy that came on at the end of the year. It was a contract year. Talked to his mentor, Eddie George, watched some videos on him. He had to impose his will. He had to do that in order to get paid, in order to succeed in the NFL, or else he was just going to fall to the wayside or whatever we want to call it. So Henry was a guy I studied. I said, this guy, you got to consider drafting him and get him early because he's a beast. He's a workhorse. No one else is going to dip into his volume. But no, the mainstream refused to. They refused to. They had Damian Williams ahead of them. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you nuts? So you got to think outside the box when you're drafting a pick, right? So let's reveal who the pick is right now. Drum roll. let's reveal who the pick is. And also, I'm going to tell you guys why I went with that person, because it's very important to reinforce what I tell you. So the first overall pick, as of right now, it is March, it is early. The first overall pick for 2020 fantasy football should be Saquon Barkley. Why is that? I'm going to tell you guys why. Number one, he's a running back. That is very important. I'm going robust RB for 2020, and I have a full fantasy football draft strategy. Check out the links below on my website at thefantasyfootballcounselor.com, and I'm going to give you my full strategy in my 16-round draft solution. Also available at thefantasyfootballcounselor.com under products. So when you're looking at the running backs, you got to look at guys that are going to get volume. So I look at Saquon Barkley, and number one, he's a running back. They are few and far between that get minimal. Everyone's in a committee. So you want to get a guy that's in a minimal committee, period. So you have to go running back when you go first overall. There's no question about it. Number two, when you're looking at Saquon Barkley, you got to look at a guy that gets a lot of volume. Going back to that criteria, he's going to get a lot of volume. He had a ton of volume back in 2018. When you look at him, 261 attempts. That's pretty damn good. And the thing about Barkley, I want to make a note here. This is very, very important, okay? He does more with the attempts. So again, going back to that criteria of talent, he does more with his attempts. I'll give you an example right now. Last year in 2019, he had 217 attempts and 244 PPR fantasy points. Check this out. He had less attempts. I'm going to repeat this. I want this to sink into you guys. Saquon Barkley had less attempts than Todd Gurley, Phillip Lindsay, Josh Jacobs, Joe Mixon, and Le'Veon Bell. I'm going to repeat that again. He had less attempts than those guys. And he scored more fantasy points. Did you hear what I'm telling you guys? Less attempts. Le'Veon Bell had 245 attempts. Saquon had 217, and he outscored these guys, including Bell, in fantasy points, and he didn't play the full season, guys. He only played, I think, 13 games. Okay? Also, and he came on strong at the end of the season. So he had his last 3 games, he had a combined 94.3 PPR fantasy points. That is phenomenal, guys. That is absolutely phenomenal. 30 points, 43.9 points, and 20.7 points in the last 3 games. Mind you, the last game or two wasn't, fantasy relevant because it was more near the end of the season, so it wasn't really championships. But in the championships, he helped people if you started them. But the last game, not much of a factor. But the point I'm trying to make is last 3 games, 94.3, finished strong at the end of the season. Back in 2018, he was the number 2 finisher, I believe, 383.8, number 1 or number 2 finisher, 11 touchdowns, was killing it. Okay, 4 receiving touchdowns. The thing about Saquon is the ceiling is there, the talent is there, and he can only go higher if he stays healthy, and I think he will. So when you look at the situation, yes, their O-line sucks. He did this with a crappy O-line, but they're going to improve that. They have to in the 2020 NFL Draft. The Giants have to improve that O-line. Saquon Barkley is a guy with a crappy O-line. The past year, they had a suspect quarterback, Daniel Jones, coming in. He is now going to go into a year where he's got more, experience under his belt, sophomore year, and they're going to have to improve that O-line. So predicated on the fact that he's done so well with such a crappy O-line, imagine what he does if they actually build some tools around him and create that environment for Saquon Barkley to succeed. Now, I got to address the question that's going to come up is why not Christian McCaffrey first overall? Well, simply from the fact that history repeats itself, and I've seen that a person that finishes on top one year doesn't finish on top next year. So I'm just going on probability that there's another guy that can come in and take that spot, and I think Saquon Barkley is the guy. Number 2, you got to understand that he had 116 receptions, Christian McCaffrey did, and if I'm a coach, I'll be like, dude, stop throwing this guy the ball. Let's get a receiver to catch the ball. Maybe we can actually make the playoffs and succeed in going deeper into the playoffs this year. It's not going to happen if you just use Christian McCaffrey as a focal point. They need wide receivers. I don't think DJ Moore is the answer. And the quarterback situation is suspect. So there's a lot of question marks surrounding that offense. I just can't imagine that CMC is going to be the focal point yet again, and he's going to repeat what he did this past season. I don't see it. I definitely see Saquon emerging and having a higher ceiling going into 2020 fantasy football. So that is my reveal, guys. Saquon Barkley, the number 1 pick for 2020 fantasy football. If you are going first, definitely consider him. If people go CMC, make sure you guys steal Saquon Barkley because he will outperform Christian McCaffrey in 2020 fantasy football. Thank you, guys. Make sure you guys leave a thumbs up, leave your questions below, and stay tuned for more reveal episodes coming your way.